Project Management. This month's episode is a review of the book Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal. The crux of this book deals with leading a large project where you have a series of teams. How do you effectively lead multiple related teams? Hence the title, Team of Teams. And McChrystal knows what he's talking about because his thesis was spawned in the cauldron of the Iraq War in the 2000s. Remember to stay tuned to the end of this pithy episode for my quick bullet summary, and you'll also get your corresponding PMI code. Now, to prep you for this lesson, there are a few background things that you should know. By the time General McChrystal arrived at the Iraq War, it was a chaotic scene. The objectives were often not clear, and even worse, there was a bureaucratic hierarchy that made quick action virtually impossible. From this sticky situation, General McChrystal came up with two guiding principles. Law number one: in a changing environment, permanent solutions are nearly impossible. Hence, even solved situations need to be monitored to ensure they remain solved. And law number two: an organization must constantly be led or even pushed, or it will regress. Yes, the law of entropy applies here too, and I couldn't agree more. Well, except that fruit pies are the best. Okay, getting to hands off. So, this is the first big lesson. In leading a team of teams, your ultimate goal is to get as much hands off as you can. And there are two big benefits of this. Most importantly, your team can make quick and decisive decisions without you always being there. And number two, having an independent team frees you up for other tasks. Now, this doesn't mean that your teams they go rogue or unaccountable, but getting into hands off will give your team the power and effectivity to make excellent decisions and corresponding actions. So, tip number one: complex versus complexity. A complex problem can be simplified, like Frederick Taylor with the manufacturing work cell. However, complexity is very difficult to be simplified. So, what is complexity? Well, it was definitely the Iraq War and other situations where the scene is dynamic and there are many inputs. You can't simplify these situations, at least not enough. So, you need to be flexible here. A solution 6 months ago may longer be effective. Now, with Team of Teams, your top leader must know one person on each team well, so there is strong trust on each team. Everyone also needs to know the big picture. There are no isolated silos, and I mean everyone. This was especially impressive with General McChrystal since he had to lead a daily meeting that had 7,000 attendees. Yes, you heard that correct. 7,000 people in one large online and in person meeting, and you thought your meeting attendee list got out of hand. Another tip is eventually each team, such as like the Navy SEALs, has one really good member from another team, like the Army Rangers. There was even one Ranger with the CIA team. This different perspective can help solve unique problems. It will also help break barriers and faulty assumptions, such as only the Navy SEALs are tough and blow stuff up. Final tip here is critical assets are more easily surrendered when given the big picture. Is there only a few RPGs available? Briefly explaining why SEAL Team Number 6 needs them will help everyone understand why they need to give up their RPGs. Hands off. This is the next big section here. Well, have we hit the promised land? Well, in project management terms, we're getting close. So, what does that look like? Well, here are the main benefits and some tips of a hands off approach. Number one, let ground control, like boots on the ground, make decisions even though central command has almost all of the information. Your boots on the ground are your most effective assets, so give them as much freedom as you can. Number two, whoever receives a complaint will own it, resolve it, and record it. At the Ritz Carlton, employees can spend up to $2,000 to fix a problem, and they coined the phrase, the customer is always right. So now you know. Number three, no decisions can be immoral or unethical. My only add here is that it should be a well defined code of ethics so that it's very clear. That's right, dinner is before dessert. Number four, lower ranked personnel can make decisions if they have done the checks, like a checklist, and there's no need for exploratory surgery, aka further investigation. In the business world, we'd call this empowered execution, and upper management can be eyes on, but hands off. Number five, if you've trained and empowered your people, they will become gardeners of their own plots, and you're no longer a chess player moving pawns, your people, over the chessboard. Local gardening gets rid of so much bureaucracy. And number six, you can't go home until the job is finished. So, considering this, would you do anything differently? Here are kind of my final thoughts here regarding Team of Teams. Super interesting read, but not every tip is applicable in the business world. Whoever receives a complaint will own it, resolve it, and record it. This principle definitely has its limits. For example, as a project manager, you may find a bug in some software, but trust me, I'm not the guy you want to resolve that. Not unless you want to make the situation even worse. Complex versus complexity. In war, there is so much complexity that you need to stay uber flexible. However, most projects that I've been involved with are merely complex, and there is a fixed solution to most problems. And maybe final thought number three here, you can't go home until the job is finished. Considering this, would you do anything differently? Again, this is a great principle, but not always practical in the business world. If your project is trending behind, yes, you need to find ways to get it back on track. However, don't force your people to sleep at the office. Well, unless they're really behind. And finally, the summary here, because it's getting past my bedtime. So let's wrap up this little burrito. If I could boil down Team of Teams into two key principles, oh, and I can, so here they are. Number one, everyone needs to know the big picture. It makes difficult decisions easier to stomach for everyone. And tip number two, garden local leadership so there's not this hierarchical chain of command. You want local gardeners that you can monitor, not chess pieces that you move. Alrighty, folks. Remember, today's episode counts towards 0.25 hours of power skills if you're looking for continuing education hours to maintain your PMP certification. And finally, big thanks to all you listeners out there. Once again, thank you for listening to Pithy Project Management. For spending a short time out of your day to sharpen the saw, you won't regret investing in yourself. This podcast was written and produced by Ben Walker. You can contact us via the podcast notes or look up Pithy Project Management on Facebook. Feel free to send in any questions, comments, suggestions, but save your complaints for your dog. Thank you. God bless and good night.